This is going to be the very first lesson in my prerequisites unit. Welcome aboard. Let's get going. So I want you to picture an animal. Just think about any animal you want. I'm going to think about my dog, okay? So there are categories that I could use to classify her, right? She's an animal. She's a mammal. She's a dog. She's a basset hound, right? And I can get really broad or I can be very specific. And we can do the same thing with numbers. And the categories we're going to put numbers into are called sets, okay? So sets are just ways to classify numbers. And we have a couple different ones that we're going to look at. And those are going to be the real numbers, the rational numbers, the irrational numbers, the integers, the integers, let's see if I can spell, the whole numbers, and the natural numbers. Okay, and we're just going to look at what these sets are, what they mean, and let's get into it. So we'll start off with real numbers. This is pretty much just any number you can think of. It's going to be any number on the number line. Right, so this could be 3, it could be 1/3, it could be pi, it could be the square root of 18, it could be negative 641, right? Any number you can think of going to be a real number pretty much, okay? Any number on the number line. Next thing I want to talk about, we'll look at the whole numbers. So whole numbers are just your counting numbers. So this is going to be like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., etc. Okay? Now, I like to think about this as like, how many siblings can you have? Right? How many siblings can you have? You can only have 0, 1, 2, 3, right? You can't have half a sibling. I mean, you can, but they're not really, it's blood relation. They're still your sibling entirely, okay? Very closely related to the whole numbers are the natural numbers, which these are just going to be the whole numbers without 0, okay? Otherwise, the sets are identical. Next set I want to talk about, very closely related to both of those, are the integers. The integers are going to be thought of as the whole numbers and their opposites. What this basically means is negative numbers and positive numbers alike. So 3 is an integer, negative 3 is an integer. 15 is an integer, negative 11 is an integer, right? Kind of the way I always think about it is if the whole numbers are 0 and count up, then the integers are 0 and count up and 0 and count down, right? It goes in both directions. That's kind of the mental image I've always used. Next set are called the rational numbers. These numbers are anything that can be written as a ratio of 2 integers, but we're mostly going to think about it as any number that can be written as a fraction. So what that is going to include is any number with a decimal that repeats or terminates. So for example, 1/3 is 0.3 repeating. We'd say this is a rational number no matter which of these we were looking at. because we can write it as 1/3, right? -2/5, that's written as a fraction. Therefore, it's a rational number, right? Something like the square root of 5, not rational, right? It has a decimal representation that goes on and on and on forever. The last set we're going to talk about is the contrast to the last set, which is the irrational numbers. Okay? Irrational numbers are going to be those decimal numbers that don't repeat or terminate. The most common one that you're going to have been used to seeing is going to be pi, right? Has a decimal, it just goes on and on forever, never stops. But what you're going to see mostly in Algebra 1 or in this course is any square root that is not a whole number. So square root of 9 equals 3, not irrational, right? Square root of 7 square root of 7 doesn't end, goes on and on forever, doesn't repeat, therefore it is irrational. Okay? That's going to be the whole of the lesson in this video. However, there is a worksheet and an answer key to that worksheet posted as links to a Google Doc in the description. So if you'd like more practice, you can get it there. Thank you for tuning in. Hopefully this is helpful to you as you start your math journey. Have a good time.